Hello there, Shadow Helmet Guy here. So about a week ago, I watched Spider-Man Brand New Day in theatres. I don't usually catch movies at the opening weekend, but I made an exception for this one. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to drop a like, follow and subscribe. Now let's get into it. Quick heads up, this video is going to be full of spoilers as I break down my thoughts on the movie. And I'm going to be honest, I walked away with a lot of issues. Watching it left me thinking, what did I just watch? Because here's the thing, they've pulled certain elements from the comic source material, sure, but then layered it on their own spin on top of it, adding new stuff that seems geared towards a more modern audience. What you end up with is this patchwork of different comic book versions of the character, bits and pieces of various eras, mashed together into something that feels disconnected. When people say these movies are comic book accurate, I think they meant the 1960s era, when Spider-Man first started in the comics. Not any animated adaptation. If we're using that comic book version as the basis, he would be more smarter, more adaptable, more independent, a bit of a rebel, with a much stronger attitude. Tom Holland's version leans closer to Ultimate Spider-Man. Peter as a kid, not as an adult. So he's more dependent, relies too much on mentorship, sometimes leans on the government, and takes his mask off way more than 616 Peter ever would. Tobey Maguire is also the opposite, too nice, too easy to walk over, missing the witty comebacks and insults that throws the enemies off their game, and his organic webbing swapped out the comic book accurate cartridges. Andrew Garfield gets closer, but he come across more of a skater than the sharp, nerdy Peter from the comics. From what I've heard about the film's connection to No Way Home, the idea was that Peter would be more grounded and independent, starting afresh, relying on himself, building his own identity as Spider-Man from scratch. I figured that we meant we'd get a storyline where he starts taking down lower tier villains, and as time goes on, the stakes escalate and attract stronger threats. That's what I was expecting going in, but instead, it was just a quick montage of his daily life, stacked with iconic comic book covers, Easter eggs. It's underwhelming, honestly, because there was so much potential there for an actual story. Turns out they did go there. Peter's DNA starts mutating, making him organic webbing, similar to the Tobey Maguire version, along with heightened senses and more raw power, and is tied to a real reason, his isolation, his emotional toll of being forgotten by everyone after No Way Home. I did wonder if they push all the way into the full man-spider transformation, extra arms, spider face, the whole thing, but I figured they hold back on that. It probably would have read as too silly, or honestly too scary for a PG-13 crowd, considering how common arachnophobia is, and that's basically what happened. They kept it grounded, enhanced abilities, black eyes, organic webbing, but nothing monstrous. My guess is, if they go even further than this, it'll be in a future movie, and probably still tone it down, rather than a full comic accurate man-spider. Now for the antagonist, which honestly confused me for most of the movie. It's mostly Jean Grey throughout, but by the end, It turns out Damage Control is really the one pulling the strings behind the destruction. even though most of the actual damage is caused by her. It feels like another case of this modern trend where the most destructive, powerful character gets framed as misunderstood. Trauma gets used to justify heinous actions, even when there's a real potential for death and harm to others. This feels pretty similar to what we've seen with Scarlet Witch and Sentry, where no hero can actually defeat these overpowered threats without some version of power of friendship or therapy talking them down. It's a weird pattern, honestly, because the lack of real villains in the MCU is getting a bit ridiculous. Everyone gets redeemed or turned into a hero, because you understand me now. But from a story standpoint, our arc is about her sister. Now, there's a Sarah Gray in the comics. She's real, going back to the 1980s X-Men storyline, but in the comics, she has no powers at all. She's just a regular human. It's Jean who gets sent off to Xavier's school at a young age and become one of the founding members of the X-Men, trained directly by Professor X. The movie flips that entirely. They gave Sarah her own telepathic powers and made her the one who mentors Jean instead of Xavier. It's a pretty big departure from the source material, even though the character herself technically exists in the comics. For help dealing with his powers, Peter turns to Bruce Banner. It's a bit underwhelming. Banner mostly gives advice. Peter ends up building the actual inhibitor device himself. And here's the thing. Peter goes in as himself, not as Spider-Man, which means Banner doesn't even recognize him, and the whole conversation has to happen in code. I wish he'd gone in as Spider-Man instead. It would have been more straightforward, and there will be less confusion about why he's asking these questions in the first place. I also can't help but wish Hulk got his own movie. He's such an interesting character, but he's stuck being tied to Universal's old distribution deal for solo movies, so it's not likely to happen. It feels like if he isn't in the movie, it wouldn't change much either way. Honestly, I think Curt Connors, the Lizard, would have fit his role way better, since his whole thing is mutation research, especially involving animals. It would have hit harder if Spider-Man came to him himself and asked for help building an inhibitor especially made from his own DNA. Not a universal one, where anyone can use, which is what risks turning into a tool the government could use against superpowered people in general. For Spider-Man's relationships, they're clearly setting up a redo with Ned and MJ. But it raises the question, what was the point of erasing the memories in the first place if they're going to redo the relationship anyway? It comes across as unnecessary drama, honestly, like an emotional roller coaster I wasn't invested in. MJ upset that Peter didn't tell her the truth sooner, and so on. It didn't land for me. Then there's Punisher, now framed as Peter's friend and ally, but his character is clearly toned down to fit the friendly dynamic, and it's never really explained how they got this close in the first place. It's mostly implied. Makes me wonder why it had to be Punisher specifically. And then there's Yelena, Black Widow, who Peter goes for information. She actually puts him down at one point, calling him what he deals with small potatoes compared to bigger threats. It comes off as belittling, and honestly, I feel like he could have found that information somewhere else. But I guess the story needed her involved either way. When I think about who Spider-Man's friends and allies could have been, It's clear that the MCU version of this world is pretty messy. Flash Thompson, the one in the comics. He's a bully who eventually goes past his differences with Peter and becomes a real friend. But the MCU reworked his character into a rich, non-abusive nerd so that the classic redemption arc doesn't translate the same way here. Harry Osborn could have been introduced as a new friend in the MCU version, but because of what happened with his father in No Way Home, Spider-Man probably don't want to be friends, so that friendship isn't likely happening. As for Johnny Storm, one of Spider-Man's best friends in the comics, he hasn't been introduced into this timeline yet, so that's off the table. Then there's Daredevil. That one's genuinely done. His secret identity is gone. He's in prison. And if he gets out, everyone will know who he is. Any unlawful move, he's either sued or back behind bars. He's extremely restricted going forward. And now for a new love interest. Black Cat. Could have been an interesting direction, but no. Has to be MJ. Feels like a lot of wasted potential across the board. Watching this got me thinking. I need to separate my mind from the comic book version of this character and just treat it as their own modern take on Spider-Man. One that isn't really following the source material. Aside from the few minor nods here and there, he's basically his own version in his own universe at this point. And it's not just him, there are other characters that I feel the same way about them. Honestly, I've now seen 2 of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. The only one that I've missed was No Way Home. And neither of the 2 movies impressed me. It's all mentorship, building up the character, all that. None of that interests me. So going forward, I think I'm done. I might skip the sequel entirely. This universe feels too messy. I'm just not attached to this version of the character. It's draining to watch. I get why some people are into it. Maybe it's built for this generation. But for me, I'm out. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about this movie on the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.